You know the scene. We've all seen it 1,000 times, right? The hacker, hood up, in a dark room, fingers just flying across the keyboard, green code cascading down the screen. And, of course, they save the world just in the nick of time. But how much of that is just pure Hollywood fantasy? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and separate the movie myths from the often surprising reality of cybersecurity. This quote from Peter Drucker, it just nails it. It perfectly sets the stage for what we're talking about. Because when you're dealing with real-world cyber threats, acting with the logic we've all picked up from the movies, well, it's not just a little off, it's actually dangerous. Yeah, this is the image we're all sold. The lone cyber warrior. The one genius analyst who can see the matrix, and is battling the bad guys in real time. It's very cool, very romantic picture of a hero defending the digital gates against impossible odds. So, let's ask the really important question here. What if the real world of what's known as digital forensics and incident response, or just DFAR for short, is absolutely nothing like that picture? What if it's less about these frantic, fast-paced battles and a whole lot more about slow, careful, painstaking investigation? And that brings us right to our first major myth, probably the one that movies get wrong almost every single time. This idea that cyber attacks are discovered the very second they begin. You know the drill on screen. The second a hacker breaches the firewall, bam, alarms start blaring, red lights are flashing everywhere, and the entire team just springs into action. It's immediate, it's incredibly dramatic, and it's a complete fantasy. So what's the reality? Brace yourself. In 2022, the average time it took to even identify that a data breach had happened was 207 days. Let that sink in. That's nearly 7 months. 7 months where an attacker could be silently creeping through a network totally and completely undetected. So why the huge delay? Well, it's because real attackers are masters of stealth. A really great way to think about it is that a real attack isn't like a loud, obvious horse clumping around. It's more like a stealthy zebra. It's designed specifically to blend in with all the normal traffic on the network. So all those alarms that everyone's relying on, they just never go off. Just think about the massive Marriott breach. The attackers were inside their network for 4 years before anyone even had a clue. 4 years. And here's where it gets really scary. While it takes defenders, on average, months just to find the breach, how long do you think it takes an attacker to spread? Just 92 minutes. That's the average time to jump from their initial entry point to another machine on the network. We're talking months of detection versus minutes of expansion. So let's move on to our next big myth, which honestly builds right on top of that first one. And that's the idea that one heroic genius can just magically fix a massive cyber crisis all by themselves. We've all seen this cinematic fix, right? Our hero wrestles with some glowing 3D cube of code on a transparent screen and poof, saves the day. The reality, though, is way less glamorous, but it's also much more effective. It's not a lone wolf, it's a team of professionals, and they are methodically, systematically working through checklists to diagnose, contain, and then eventually resolve the problem. It is all about the method, not about the magic. And the real tool of the trade here, it isn't some futuristic hacking program. It's something called a runbook. And really all these are playbooks, super detailed checklists that guide a team's response. Their whole purpose is to make sure that in the heat of a real crisis, the decisions being made are rational and consistent, not just panicked and improvised on the spot. And believing in this lone genius myth has some seriously dangerous consequences. Just imagine a bank president who thinks any tech person can handle a hack. They might get hit with a devastating ransomware attack and just assign it to a junior team that normally handles password resets. Without even realizing it, they're accepting a catastrophic, almost unimaginable level of risk. Okay, so the attack isn't found quickly, and it's not fixed by magic. But surely we can track down who did it, right? Well, that brings us to our third big myth, the idea of the easy whodunit. In the movies, they just yell, "Trace the IP," and suddenly there's a flashing red dot on a map, pinpointing the hacker's apartment. In reality, that's nearly impossible. That IP address could belong to a massive global network of infected computers, a botnet. It could be a public coffee shop, or it could even be the computer of another victim that's being used as a proxy. Those geolocation services are just educated guesses. And get this, US courts have literally ruled that an IP address alone isn't enough to prove who was actually behind the keyboard. So the most crucial point for any organization to understand is this. For most of us, Hunting for the specific attacker is a complete waste of time and resources. The focus has to shift to a much more practical and, frankly, more important set of questions. Why were we targeted? And even more importantly, how did they get in? That's the information that actually leads to a real, effective defense. Okay, so we've busted the myths of speed, of magic, and of attribution. But why is it so critical to get this stuff right? Well, it's about shifting your entire mindset from one of constant panic to one of methodical, calm preparation. Because when you're operating with that Hollywood mindset, it is just plain exhausting. It creates this thing called alert fatigue, where every little blip is treated like a 5-alarm fire, and that just leads to burnout. And then when a real crisis hits, it encourages panicked emotional decisions instead of the calm, procedural ones that you actually need. So what does a realistic approach actually look like? Well, first, you just accept the complexity. You have to understand that this is a slow, methodical process. Second, you learn to triage your threats. Not every single alert is a world-ending event. Third, you plan ahead using those runbooks we talked about. And finally, you focus your precious energy on defense, on understanding how you were hit, not on some pointless wild goose chase for who did it. So the question I want to leave you with is this. In this world of incredibly complex and stealthy cyber threats, is your organization prepared for the methodical marathon that cybersecurity truly is? Or are you still just waiting for a Hollywood hero to show up and win a 90-second sprint?